On the night of August 29, 2015, around 10:30 p.m., Elijah Bear Diaz was dropped off at his home on Joey Avenue in El Cajon, California, by his mother. Less than an hour later, at 11:19 p.m., she received a text from him, a message that would turn out to be the last communication she'd ever have with her son. The next day, concerned after not hearing from him, his mother went back to his home around 4 p.m. What she found was deeply unsettling. Bear was gone. His crutches, which he needed to walk due to a foot injury, were missing too. Also gone were his 50-inch TV, a bedsheet, the contents of his safe, and a red rucksack containing his diabetic tablets for the week. But here's where it gets even stranger. His prescription glasses, toothbrush, and phone charger were all left behind. How could someone with such limited mobility have managed to leave or been taken along with all those items, especially something as bulky as a TV? Bear couldn't walk far on his own, and he definitely couldn't drive because of his injuries. The mystery only deepened as investigators began to piece together the events surrounding his disappearance. His cell phone was turned off the day after he vanished, and his bank account remained untouched. He also hadn't logged into any of his social media accounts. However, his phone last pinged in two locations, first at 1:29 a.m. near the Barona Reservation and Casino, and later near Santa Isabel. Search teams scoured both areas, but found little to no clues. Investigators even used luminol in Bear's room, a chemical that reveals traces of blood and other bodily fluids. But their efforts revealed nothing. It was as if he had vanished without a trace. Bear, a member of the Barona tribe in San Diego County, would regularly receive checks from the tribe, but none of these checks had been picked up or deposited since he disappeared. Why would he suddenly stop collecting them? And here's another puzzling detail. Bear was known for being dependable. He would never just disappear without telling someone. He also deeply valued his connection to his tribe and never missed tribal events. That's when the story took an even more unexpected twist. Another 20-year-old Skylar Peterson Tosick disappeared without a trace under puzzling circumstances. Before he vanished, Skylar had sent a message to his mother, Olivia, saying he was going hiking with two friends named Addis and Eli. The problem? Olivia didn't recognize those names, and no one seemed to know who these two people were. Later that same day, at around 8 p.m., Skylar sent another message to his mother. This one was confusing and unsettling. He mentioned two wealthy women and something about a passport. The strange wording and tone made Olivia wonder if her son had gotten involved with some sort of cult. Her concern pushed her to act immediately. She discovered that Skylar had been dropped off by an Uber near San Pascual Academy, a remote area in Escondido, California. As she searched for answers, she came across another missing person case, that of Elijah Bear Diaz, who had disappeared just one day earlier. At first, Olivia thought there might be a connection. Could Eli in Skylar's message have been Elijah Diaz? But after speaking with the police, authorities were firm in their belief that the two cases were unrelated. However, one eerie detail stood out. Both young men shared a striking resemblance. They were both thin, dark-haired, and in their early 20s. And both had vanished mysteriously, leaving their loved ones with endless questions. Is it all just a coincidence? Or is there something more sinister tying these two cases together? Andrea Nabel. It's been 5 long years since Andrea Nabel vanished without a trace, yet her family is still searching for answers. Her father starts and ends every day with the same thought. Where is Andrea? On August 13, 2019, Andrea was last seen leaving her sister Erin's home in the early hours of the morning. She was supposed to return to her mother's house in Louisville, where she'd been staying. But somewhere along that route, something went terribly wrong. At first, authorities believed she disappeared while walking home. But a private investigator uncovered something shocking. Her phone's GPS showed she actually made it back to her mother's house that night. So what happened after she arrived? The day before her disappearance, Andrea had injuries on her face that required medical attention. She'd gotten a ride to her mother's home on Chick Road, but the next day she decided to visit her sister Erin. Later that night, around 1 a.m., she began walking back home. She was spotted in the Otter Creek Park and Camp Taylor neighborhoods and even made a phone call to a friend, asking for a ride. But the call went unanswered, going straight to voicemail. And then came the most unsettling detail. Andrea was seen back near her mother's house on Chick Road, but instead of going inside, she paced back and forth outside, lingering in the shadows. And then she disappeared. Who was she waiting for? Did someone approach her in those final moments? These questions have haunted her family ever since. Investigators have searched tirelessly across Louisville, Jefferson County, and southern Indiana, following leads and reported sightings. But every clue has led to more uncertainty. Severed head of Beaver County. On December 12, 2014, what began as an ordinary day in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, quickly turned into one of the area's most haunting mysteries. A teenager walking along a quiet road noticed something strange resting atop an untouched pile of leaves. What he saw would stay with him forever, a human head, carefully placed and oddly undisturbed. Who had put it there and why? Authorities arrived quickly, expecting a grisly and chaotic crime scene. Instead, they found something far more unsettling. No blood, no signs of violence, and no other remnants nearby. The head appeared to have been deliberately staged, almost as if someone wanted it to be discovered. The head belonged to an older woman, likely between 60 and 80 years old, with short grey hair. Even more puzzling was the precise way it had been cleanly removed, suggesting the work of someone with medical or embalming expertise. Investigators discovered another disturbing detail. The head had been preserved with embalming fluid, making it impossible to determine whether the woman had died recently or years ago. Any trace of DNA had been completely eliminated, erasing critical clues about her identity. But the strangest detail was yet to come. The woman's eyes were missing, and in their place sat red rubber balls. This bizarre discovery led investigators to question whether they were dealing with a ritualistic act or something even darker. Experts in embalming were consulted, and they confirmed that replacing eyes with rubber balls was not a standard practice in body preservation. The origins of these rubber balls became another dead end in a case already full of them. Just when it seemed the trail had gone cold, a surprising clue emerged. The investigation took a new turn when police were directed to a crypt from 1988 that had been vandalized. Inside, the body was found decapitated. Could this be connected to the mysterious case? However, dental records and further testing revealed that the remains from the crypt were not connected to the head found in Beaver County. Once again, investigators hit a dead end. With no clear answers, authorities turned to the public for help. They brought in forensic artist Michelle Vitale, who carefully crafted an accurate clay replica of the woman's head. This allowed law enforcement to share her likeness with the public without using graphic photos that might disturb the community. For a brief moment, hope surged. Flyers with detailed sketches and images of the sculpture were widely circulated. Authorities waited for leads to pour in, but no meaningful tips emerged. Then things took another odd shift in the case. A man named Jay Gabner, who lived just across the street from where the head had been found, contacted authorities. Initially, investigators hoped this might finally bring the case to a resolution. Instead, he pointed the finger at the teenager who originally discovered the head. His accusation raised eyebrows, but suspicion quickly shifted back to Gabner himself. Investigators learned that Gabner and the teenager had once been acquaintances. However, their friendship had soured, leading to a falling out. His grudge against the teen added another layer of suspicion to his story. There was one more detail that investigators couldn't overlook. Gabner was an expert in human anatomy. His knowledge of the human body seemed eerily relevant to the precise way the head had been removed and preserved. Authorities began to focus heavily on Gabner. He was subjected to intense questioning and even given a polygraph test. But in the end, no evidence connected him to the crime, and the investigation hit yet another wall. Lawrence Bertram, Robbie Thompson, and Steve Tate. What could explain the unsettling series of disappearances in the quiet community of Smiths Falls, Ontario? Known for its small-town charm and tight-knit neighborhoods, the area was shaken by a string of mysterious events beginning in September 2022. On September 30th, 2022, 43-year-old Lawrence Bertram was last seen in downtown Smiths Falls. His sudden disappearance sparked an investigation, but despite efforts from authorities, no trace of him was ever found. Fast forward 14 months later, and another resident, 34-year-old Robbie Thompson, was reported missing on October 18, 2023. His vanishing is believed to have happened somewhere between October 12th and 18th, according to the authorities. Robbie was well known in both Smiths Falls and Prescott, but no one saw him leave or heard from him again. The Ontario Provincial Police launched an extensive search, deploying canine units, aerial support, emergency response teams, and underwater recovery divers. Despite these large-scale efforts, Robbie remained missing. While authorities searched for Robbie, they continued to revisit Lawrence's case. That's when they uncovered a surprising connection. Lawrence and Robbie were close friends. Both men were well known in the local community and often seen together. What could connect these cases? Before the community could fully process those questions, tragedy struck again. On November 4, 2023, 34-year-old Steve Tate, a resident of Montague Township, was reported missing. Steve wasn't just another local name, he was also a close friend of both Lawrence and Robbie. 3 men, 3 disappearances, all within the same circle of friends. But Steve's account unfolded in an entirely different way. Just 4 days later, his body was found near Highway 5. The cause of death was determined to be a hit-and-run accident, but no evidence surfaced to identify the driver responsible. Were these events purely coincidental, or was there a deeper connection tying these 3 men together? Rumors spread quickly through Smiths Falls. Some residents whispered about a conspiracy, others speculated about foul play. Theories ranged from accidents to something far more deliberate. Despite exhaustive investigations, public appeals for information, and even rewards offered, no significant leads have emerged. To this day, Lawrence Bertram's still missing. He's described as a medium-built man with brown hair and blue eyes. Robbie Thompson has not been found, despite extensive searches. Steve Tate's hit-and-run case remains unsolved, and whoever was behind the wheel that day is still out there. What really happened to Lawrence, Robbie, and Steve? Could their fates be connected, or are these tragic events merely an eerie coincidence? Stephanie Ann Warner. On July 4, 2013, while most people in Oregon were celebrating Independence Day with parades and fireworks, Stephanie Ann Warner was enjoying the holiday in her own way. She drove from her home in the Rogue community with her boyfriend Lenny Ames to watch the festive parade. She wasn't just there for fun. She was volunteering with the Jackson County Fuel Committee, a group dedicated to helping low-income families access heating fuel. During the parade, she was even caught on camera walking alongside the committee's float, a snapshot of what should have been an ordinary and joyful day. But what happened after the parade ended? Later that afternoon, Stephanie and Lenny left the event together and headed back toward Rogue. Around 5 p.m., Stephanie was seen at Stewart Market, a small local convenience store. Shortly after, she dropped Lenny off at the Rouge Country store. That was her last confirmed sighting. When days passed with no calls, texts, or any sign of Stephanie, her mother grew increasingly concerned. She eventually filed a missing person report with the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. The investigation revealed some unsettling details. Her dark green 2004 Nissan Xterra SUV was still parked in her driveway along Highway 238. Inside her home, her pets had been left unattended, and all her personal belongings were still there. There were no signs of forced entry or any struggle. What could make someone vanish so suddenly, leaving behind everything, including beloved pets? Suspicion quickly rotated to Lenny Ames, the last known person to have seen her. Ames, who lived in a mountain campsite nearby, told investigators he and Stephanie parted ways at the Rouge Country store, located at 7350 Highway 238, just 2 miles from her home. After being dropped off at the Rouge Country store, Lenny Ames claimed he paid a group of young men to give him a ride back to his mountain campsite. The next day, he said he went to Stephanie's home, but she wasn't there. What happened next raised even more eyebrows. Ames borrowed Stephanie's SUV and drove to a store in Williams, also located along Highway 238. After running his errands, he returned the vehicle to her driveway and then went back to his campsite, where he stayed for several days. For 2 years, the case went cold. Then, on July 8, 2015, Ames was officially named the prime suspect in Stephanie's disappearance. Investigators began to believe that she never actually left the area and that foul play was likely involved. Suspicion grew stronger when Ames stopped cooperating with law enforcement and eventually left the state altogether. But the mystery shifted in a surprising direction in 2023. While out in a wooded area about 2.5 miles from her home, a local mushroom hunter stumbled upon something unsettling: what appeared to be human hair and tissue. The discovery was immediately reported to the authorities, and search teams were dispatched to collect the leftovers. Tests confirmed the material was human, but investigators couldn't determine if it belonged to Stephanie Warner. Search and rescue teams, along with cadaver dogs, scoured the surrounding area for additional remains, but nothing more was found. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office decided to re-examine every piece of evidence. Case files were reviewed from top to bottom, and witnesses were re-interviewed. Despite this renewed effort, no answers have come regarding Stephanie's fate. She had several distinctive tattoos that could help identify her. On her ankle and foot, there's a tree branch with an owl, while another tattoo features a woman's head. Her thigh is adorned with a colorful bird and flowers, and her chest showcases a mermaid design. So there you have it. If any of these cases gave you chills, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories from the shadows.